Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Joining me on this episode is Mike Werner. Mike, how you doing?
I finally made it after a 30-minute battle with my laptop. I made it on, and then I've made a myriad of mistakes while being on here as well. I mean, technology is new to me, apparently.
Yeah, you almost tweeted out the backstage link so people all over Twitter could come and join us on the podcast.
Why not? Why not? Come on in.
That would have been interesting to say the least. Might have been fun. You never know who's on at what's it, 11 o'clock at night Eastern?
Probably the best people.
That's what I think, right? So we're gonna talk about some pitching today, kind of wrap up a discussion on the main differences between our top 50 pitchers. If people are watching live and they want to ask questions as we go, we can answer them. You know, you and I are pretty open. We didn't plan much ahead of time, so otherwise we'll just keep going down our list of our top 50 guys that we kind of disagree on. We're going to start. Oh, before we do, remind everybody you can reach Mike on Twitter at Mike Werner FWFB. That's where you can maybe accidentally get the link to the backstage of these live streams
or other things. Who knows?
Yeah, you never know. Mike tweets out random stuff. You know, you can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Potapalooza coming up this weekend. It's going to be a blast. Going to have like 100+ fantasy analysts coming on live stream with me over the course of 2 days next weekend, or this weekend, I guess. You can win a bunch of prizes if you want to win some prizes, including draft guides, subscriptions to all sorts of different sites. Ian Kahn is giving away a 15-minute conversation with him via Zoom to break down one of your Dynasty League teams. Patrick Davitt from Baseball HQ will let you be his co-host, ride shotgun on Baseball HQ radio. Like, there's some really, really cool gifts, some like sports memorabilia, signed baseball cards, things like that. If you want to get into that raffle, for every $1 you donate to justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com via PayPal, you'll get a raffle ticket. So if you want to get in, start donating via PayPal or at Justin Salinger via Venmo. So, last year we raised $6,000. Hoping to break that this year. I want to beat PitchCon, actually. You know what? PitchCon raised $10,000. I want to beat them. Let's beat them.
That's impressive.
Right? They had, 5 days? I can beat them in 2 days. I beat them last year, I think.
What's the line in Vegas?
It's got to be pretty low. I would think
plus 400.
Yeah,
plus
I don't think I have very good odds. But you know, I want to beat them. I love Nick. I love the guys over at Pitcher List. But you got to have a little healthy competition, raising money for Mental Health America. So a really good organization, does a lot of great good. All right, so let's jump into the first pitcher we're going to talk about tonight. You know, it's not a huge difference. I've got Tyler Glasnow as my starting pitcher 20. You have him as starting pitcher 16. But I know you're a Rays fan. Is this homerism, or why are you so high on Tyler Glasnow?
He's just an elite pitcher whenever he's on the field. He was a top 10 starter the last couple of seasons before he was injured. Sorry, my kid's in the background if you haven't listened to me recently. But he upped his curveball uses last year up to 35%. It resulted in a 53% whiff rate. His K percentage, K to walk rate, batting average against Sierra are all top 10 since 2019. Just flat out when he's on the field, he's a top 10 starter. Now, if you're trying to project innings, that's where you can make the real argument that he might not be a top 20 guy in ranks. And I can completely understand that point, but especially in shallower formats or 12-team leagues, even 15-team formats, I can understand taking him in the top 15 range just because, again, whenever he's been on the field, he has been a top 10 starter. So, yeah, a little bit of homerism, I'd say maybe 5 to 10%, but most of it is honestly skills driven. And I dove really deep into the top 50. I post them on the site, friendsoffantasybenefits.com if you want to check it out. But I really feel good about the ranking, especially if he were to hit 160, 170 innings pitched. I think he's no question a top 15 to at least top 20 starter.
I mean, I'm not that much lower than you. I've got him number 20, so I can't really argue it too much. I have some minor concerns about him being mostly a 2-pitch guy, and then it's all about health, right?
He's tinkering, though. He's adding the pitch this offseason. We'll see.
That would make him very, very interesting. I still don't know. I could probably move him above Snell. I don't know how much more I can move him after that, though. Like, I'm not going to put him over Carrasco. I'm not going to put him over Corbin Burns.
Maeda, do you have Maeda ahead of him?
I do. I don't think I'd put him above Maeda.
Is Maeda about the same not injury risk, but innings risk? Like, isn't that a possibility if you really think about it?
I mean, that's what everybody keeps saying, but I think the Twins need him to pitch.
Oh, of course they do, but he's never really established a 180, 190 innings.
That's because the Dodgers. That's because of Dodgeritis. The Dodgers wouldn't let him do that. The Twins let him go last year.
They did.
They don't have the bullpen to mess around. Now, if you want to tell me, I don't know if he can hold up over that period of time, over the full course of full season, because we've never seen it before. I can get that argument. That's why I have him 15, because if we knew he was going to go 180, I think a lot more people would have him higher than 15. But
sure,
I feel pretty good that he's going to be fine, And so, I mean, if he's your SP1 and then you're pairing him with a high volume guy, I got no problem with that.
Yeah, and to be fair, I have Maeda in front of Glasnow by one spot, so I'm obviously slightly ahead on Maeda over Glasnow. But I think that the ranking shows that they have high skill levels, but you have to take into account that the innings could be a risk with both of them, really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to leave my drafts with a better pitcher as my number one at least than both of these guys, but if I have to do it, I don't mind pairing them together. Actually, probably not those two together, but like
not those two specifically. Yeah,
maybe not those two specifically, but pairing two guys in that area. Like if I paired Glasnow with Hendricks, I would feel pretty good.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
You get the upside of Glasnow and kind of the guaranteed safety of Hendricks. I'd feel pretty good walking out, of the draft like that.
I agree.
All right, next guy you're a bit higher on than me. Is your number 18 starting pitcher. That's Hyunjin Ryu. I've got him at 24, so just a 6-spot difference, a little bit farther away. I feel like you might be right on this one. So talk to me a little bit about Hyunjin Ryu.
I mean, I think people think he's older than it seems, but I mean, he's going to be in his age 34 season. The Blue Jays, kind of like Maeda with the Twins, like the Blue Jays need Ryu to establish as many innings as he possibly can. He's been a top 10 starter according to WAR the last 2 seasons as well. I think we might be hitting a spot with him. Again, another guy that you're banking health for, but from a skills perspective, not as high upside from a strikeout perspective as some of these guys at the top of the list here, but just a really steady contributor in multiple facets. I feel really good about his ERA. I think that if you're projecting higher than like a 3 ERA for him, then you're kind of not looking at the actual base skills. Really good ground ball tilt, the ability to have a 12+% swinging strike rate, which makes him a 8 to 9 strikeout per inning guy for the most part. Also does a really good job of he has a career 5-6% walk rate, so it does a really good job of keeping runners off base. Just from start to finish, a really not top of the line guy, but a solid starter overall. That if you just take away the fact that he's missed some time in the last few years, I think that most people would probably have him in their top 25, and I feel pretty good about it. I probably would like a little bit more upside, especially from a SP1. And right now I have him ranked as an SP1 essentially, especially in 20-team leagues and such. But he still is not 0 in strikeouts either. So I'm not necessarily like calling a breakout for him, but I do think if he was that, I feel pretty good about his innings for this year. I think more so than most. 180 innings in 2019. He had 67 in 2020. I think that he could go 180, 190 again this year, and I wouldn't be shocked at all.
I wouldn't be either. I mean, the biggest question is his health, right? I mean, whenever he's been on the field, he's been good. I mean, as long as you don't consider the 2016 season, we're only through 4.2 innings. He's never had an ERA below 3.77. Like he's always been good. And I mean, the last 3 years, like you said, he's had sub-3 ERAs and, a decent strikeout rate over the course of that time, pretty much like close to a strikeout an inning. So, I mean, he's coming off of his, arguably one of his best seasons in back-to-back years right here. So it's like, I don't understand why. Well, one, I don't get the projections on him. You go over to like Fangraphs and you look at all the projection systems they've got over there. They all have him for 170 innings except for Zips. And they all have him for like a 3.7 to a 4.15 ERA. Like there's a disconnect there where the projections probably aren't able to kind of pinpoint who he is because of just the weird track record of, 1 year he throws a lot of innings, the next year he doesn't, but he's always good. So I don't really get it. I mean, I think you're pretty locked in at like a 3.20 ERA for 150 innings, would be my guess, as long as he's healthy. And I think that's, very worthy of this spot. There is just a ton of risk to it. So again, this is one of those guys, if you're going to take him, you got to make sure you've got some sort of horse at the top of your rotation. You definitely can't have him. And like, you can't pair him and Glass now for sure, because the risk that you could get a total of 130 innings from both of them, total, is too much to stomach on one team.
Yeah, but that's the way it is with any pitcher, honestly. Would it shock you if DeGrom missed 2 months this season? I'm not, God, I hope that doesn't happen, but any pitcher.
It would shock me. It would, because DeGrom's never done that.
Sure, but pitchers are volatile. That's the reason why for the longest time the strategy was to take pitching later and kind of supplement your roster with waiver wire guys and later starting pitchers that come off the waiver wire that you're able to bid on and get some decent value from, and not even think about taking a pitcher for the first 5-6 rounds of the draft. Mind you, as the age has changed, starting pitching has been pushed up the board. And I think rightfully so in a lot of ways. Even myself, I'm taking starting pitcher earlier than I ever have in my fantasy baseball lifetime. But, pitching is volatile. And I just, with Ryu, again, like even with Glass, I'd be a little bit more shocked if he threw over 170 innings just because the Rays are very.
There's no way he does.
Yeah. I don't think so. But Ryu, I definitely feel he could, because just as recently as 2019, he went for, 183 innings. And this is now a couple years that he has been, further away from, issues with like a groin and, neck stiffness, stuff like that. Like he has been a couple years removed from major injuries at this point. So, it wouldn't really shock me if Rube was like kind of a workhorse guy. But my main point is that pitching is volatile, and, it doesn't really matter who it is, they can get injured.
I mean, yes, but there's also a disconnect in the industry because there's this camp that says, all pitchers can get hurt, and then there's this other camp that's like, no, certain pitchers are so much more likely to get injured than others. And I think there is the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? So obviously any pitcher can get hurt anytime. Pitching is an unnatural motion. It just is. You're putting more torque on your elbow and your shoulder than your body is meant to do. At the same time, we can't just ignore the fact that a track record of injury is the leading cause, or is the leading kind of red flag for another injury. So, yes, would it completely shock me if a guy like DeGrom missed 2 months or a guy like Cole missed 2 months? No, it wouldn't. But I also don't think that like a guy like Glasnow or a guy like Hyunjin Ryu is just as safe as like, I don't know, a starting pitcher has just never really been injured or missed time.
That's why I like to really subscribe to the health grades from Baseball HQ, because it's essentially a letter grade on the career track record of health, and health is a skill. Absolutely. And somebody like Tyler Glasnow does not have that skill right now. He has a lot of other ones, but Rue, for instance, is a C on the letter scale for the Mayberry method for Baseball HQ. Like Tyler Glasnow is an F. I would bet my life that Jacob deGrom is an A. So that's something that just factors in. And I definitely don't subscribe to all pitchers are the same. They're all going to get injured eventually, anything of that nature. But I do think that pitching is a little bit more volatile than hitting when it comes to injuries and durability. Absolutely. Because it's like you said, it's a little bit more unnatural. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think that whether you believe in God or the universe or evolution or whatever, like
got into this.
None of these like intelligent designs or whatever they are like meant for us to throw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. Like it just wasn't. We were supposed to be throwing rocks at dinosaurs and stuff. Not dinosaurs, but
most of us can't throw 90. So
yeah, no, I can't. I mean, if I could hit 50 on a radar gun at this point in my life, I'd be surprised.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next guy and talk about another former Ray in Charlie Morton. Now, this is a guy that I actually have come up on. So the fact that we're still 5 spots apart and you have him at 26 and I have him at 31 is a little bit surprising, because when I first did my rankings, I had him, I think, outside the top 45. And I've brought him all the way up to 31. I've kind of, talking to other people in the industry and, kind of really looking into it. I'm feeling a little bit better about what he did, especially in the postseason, to kind of put a little bit of my fears of his health at ease, in terms of, how much time he missed in the regular season. But talk to me about Charlie Morton.
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, I was really kind of worried about how he looked, and that was even prior to the short sprint that we had. And he missed time with injury. He ended up kind of having some dips in velocity. Really, I liked his September a lot, and I liked the way he looked in the postseason. He kind of looked like vintage Rays Morton and Houston, honestly. The curveball's looking great. His velocity went back up to the 93, 94 mile an hour range. I think he's going to age pretty gracefully, and his skills remain, widely intact. If you look at September alone, he had a nice 50%-ish ground ball rate. He had a 3.5 expected ERA. He faced some pretty decent teams, had almost a 13% swinging strike rate, 4.22 ERA, 1.3 whip isn't great, but I do believe that I honestly thought going into this year that there was a possibility that he was going to retire, and he would not have come back to play if he didn't feel like he had a legitimate chance to help a winning club actually win. And, for me, I'm looking at Morton's choice to play as the fact that he feels confident enough that he is able to be on a major league mound for at least a fair amount of the season. He did post, prior to 2020, he had, back-to-back 30-start seasons and 25 starts in 2017. I know he, had a couple of injuries in there and everything, but he's somebody that has been able to, in the latter part of his career, really build up some innings and has maintained velocity and has really good stuff and is really, has the ability to strike out a ton of guys as well. I just think that he's, from a skills perspective, one of the top guys in the league. And I realize he's going to be 37 and there's a lot of issues there, but I like him a lot. I'm pretty happy with him, and injuries have to be baked in there. He's not going to be a safe starting pitcher 2 for you, but I think more of a starting pitcher 3 with upside. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I'm still hesitant. I think I've got him in 1 league so far, and that's saying a lot considering how many leagues I've already drafted. He's currently going off the board at pitcher number 45 over the course of the last 3 weeks on NFBC Draft Champions Leagues. That obviously includes probably about 5 or 6 relievers. So, I mean, he's around starting pitcher 38, 39, something like that. I don't think that's a bad price. And like I said, I've got him at 31, I believe, is what I said I had him at. So I like him better than the market, but I haven't seemed to be willing to pull the trigger on him. I just worry that, what derailed Charlie Morton's career early on, right? It was injuries. Couldn't stay healthy in Pittsburgh. Then he goes to the Astros, finds success, goes to the Rays, continues that success. But last year really broke down. That shoulder was an issue. I know he came back and he looked great at the end of the season and did look great in the postseason. That's why I continue to push him up. But I'm having a real hard time pulling the trigger. And I think for that reason alone, I probably should drop him in my ranks if I've got him ranked 7 or 8 spots above ADP and he's not on, I think he's only on 1 of my teams so far. That means I really don't like him that much. Right.
And, you have drafted way more than I have. Mm-hmm. If it came down to it, I probably would. I have Luzardo underneath him. I also, I've heard some encouraging stats on Strasburg. I like Strasburg probably a little bit more than Morton at this point if I feel like Strasburg's going to be going into the season healthy. I know we talked ad nauseum about him the first time we discussed the top 50.
He pitched today off a mound. So, I mean,
progress.
And supposedly there are no issues. So, I mean, I had Strasburg at 34. I know we talked about it in the last time you and I got together a few episodes ago. I'm probably going to move him up, right? I mean, he's got to be in the top 30 for me at least now. There's still concern with me with Strasburg just because we don't have a long track record of the carpal tunnel surgery for pitchers. We don't. And it's not like he's been a bastion of health prior to this, right? This is a dude who always seems to get hurt. So I definitely should move him up in my top 30, but when we start talking about would I rather have Steven Strasburg or Jose Barrios? Yeah, I'm going to take Barrios. I just feel so much more comfortable. I'm going to get 180 innings.
Yeah, and I'm really high on Barrios, like we also discussed last show. But with Strasburg, there's a wide range of outcomes, and I think that this is the first step in what needs to be many steps positively for him as the season goes on. The first step is him just getting on a mound, which is great, but who knows how the pitches are moving? Who knows what he's going to look like in spring? I mean, his price will either go up or down based on that.
It could go up huge.
He's looking great in spring, and he's throwing 2 to 3 pitches really well, and people are really seeing a nice bite to the pitches as well. Like Strasburg could soar up to the top 20 even if things kind of really played right for him. So.
Yeah, he's currently going off at pitcher number 28, and I believe there's only 3 relievers ahead of him, so that's starting pitcher 25. So if he's already before this going at starting pitcher 25, I'm going to guess he's a top 20 starter here in 2 weeks.
Possibly. Again, depends on another couple of tidbits of information going the right way, and overall,
as long as there's no speed bumps, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't take him in the top 20. That's insane to me.
Not right now. I agree. I feel better about a lot of guys around him, producing the entire season than I do about Strasburg. Now, if it's a Morton versus Strasburg, problem that you're having, then I can understand having, if somebody has Strasburg ahead of Morton, which I think I'm probably the minority that has Morton ahead of him, then I can understand, pulling the trigger on Strasburg instead. But I do think Morton, I honestly, this whole time thought he was going to retire this year. He would not have played or tried to play if he didn't feel like he was at least 75 to 80% right. And if he's right, then he's been a solid starter the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, so.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next guy and talk about Sixto Sanchez. I have him at 42. You have him at 31. I'm really surprised by this. I mean, I know you like, kind of the next, young starting pitcher, but there's some warning signs for me on Sixto that has me a little bit tentative, and you're really high on him compared to the market. So what are your thoughts on Sixto?
Yeah, I'm going to drop him. It doesn't mean I'm not high on him or higher than the market still. But when I did the list, I think that he's going to get bulk innings. I actually think that he could end up being like a top 10 guy when it comes to just innings pitched this year. His frame is great. It's also projectable for a ton of innings as well. I love his changeup. I think that it's his best secondary pitch, at least right now. The velocity really hasn't equated to the high strikeout totals that you would expect. And he stopped using a slider as the season went on as well, which kind of shows me that he was losing a little bit of confidence in the pitch. What I'm hoping for is that he establishes the slider once again and is able to generate more whiffs based on 3 pitches versus using 2. If he stays a 2-pitch guy, then he likely will end up doing a lot of what he did last season, which wasn't bad, but it's going to be, again, over the course of a full season, which I think he's a candidate to hit 200 innings. I really genuinely believe that I haven't penciled it right now for like 186 innings, which I know is crazy from like essentially a rookie pitcher, but I truly believe that he's going to be one of the top 10 high innings pitch guys in the league. Best case scenario, he's able to establish the slider again and have 3 solid offerings and be able to generate a few more strikeouts. In a worst case scenario, he ends up getting injured or he ends up being so inconsistent that he goes down to AAA, which I think is a very slim chance of happening. But there's a wide range of outcomes with Sixto, which is why I think that there's a lot of people that are probably a little bit worried about him. And there are some warning signs. I'm sure you're going to give a few fair points that I definitely saw when looking into his profile and everything. But I think that there is a lot more there than we saw in a limited sample. And again, I'm kind of really banking on the innings pitch being something that kind of helps out, even if he isn't the best from a skills perspective yet.
I mean, I like Sixto. So like, as much as I'm lower on him than you are, by a fair amount, I think I'm still higher on him than the market is. So, like, I don't have anything bad to say on Sixto. I think
50th overall pitcher, 133rd. So since October. I need to go over to January area, but
he's about 48th or something like that in terms of starting pitchers. So, and I've got him 42. I mean, I like him a lot. I agree with you. I think there's some people in the industry and in the market that really are afraid that he's either going to get sit down or he's going to get limited. I don't know if that he's going to be a bulk guy in the same way that maybe you do, but I think he's going to be very, very effective. And I know there are concerns that, he doesn't get enough movement on the fastball, but it's still almost 98 miles an hour. And he's got, multiple secondary pitches that are great. And, gets a ton of ground balls. Here's the thing. I don't think he's going to be like a league winner type pitcher, by any stretch of the imagination. Like, I think he's very. I think it was Paul actually comped him to Dustin May in the way that, like, when you watch him pitch, you go, man, this guy is so dominant. He's gonna be an ace, right? He's gonna be a fantasy ace, But he gives up a lot of contact because he gets those ground balls and he doesn't strike out a ton of guys. And I don't know that that's necessarily going to change over the course of 2021. I think it could as he kind of refines things, later in his career. But I do think he's going to be, I think he's going to get 140, 150 innings, and they're going to be really good ratios. Maybe the whip isn't, out of this world, but I think you're going to get a good ERA, an average whip, enough strikeouts to matter, and some good bulk innings. So I kind of agree with you. I'm not quite as high on him as you are, but I really do like Sixto Sanchez.
Well, and there's going to be inconsistency too, right? Like, especially in head-to-head formats, you usually like a guy that's going to go out and kind of give you 6 innings pitched, 2 earned, 5-6 strikeouts, and some decent, 1 or 2 walks or whatever. With Sixto, you might have a day where he's completely lighting it up and he goes a complete game, giving up 1 earned run on 3 hits and has 12 strikeouts. And then there might be another day where he goes 3 innings and gives up 5 runs and strikes out 2 guys. Like that genuinely can happen with him, just based on him being so young. But I love his mechanics. I love how big he is, and I think that he's ready to take the next step. I'm hoping that lands him in the top 35 where I have him ranked. And I realize that that's a really heavy market price to pay. And like, as you were saying, he might not be a league winner just because you're paying such a cost for him that there's really no way that he goes much above that value for you. But if he does get command of that slider and he doesn't lose confidence in it, I do think that that's going to be a game changer for him.
I think one of the things that people aren't recognizing is how much the Marlins let him go deep into games. Right. He went 7 innings in 3 of his 7 starts and 6 innings in another. And the final 2 starts where he didn't go 5 innings were because he was getting hit hard. But it wasn't a matter of that he couldn't go deep. He isn't physically able to go deep in the game. He just had 2 bad games at the end of the season. So, this is a guy that I think will go deep into games, and the Marlins have already showed they trust him to do that. So there's no reason to think, like, if you're in a quality starts league, how many guys are you really comfortable after, the top 30 starting pitchers that are going to be able to get quality starts because teams are going to be pulling them out?
Right. And that's why I do think he's a candidate. I think he's a candidate to be top 10 in innings when the year is all said and done. And of his 7 starts, he had his first 5 starts in the bigs. He gave up 3 earned runs or less. He gave up 1 earned run or less in 3 of them. And maybe some of that is him seeing, teams for the first time and everything. But, Atlanta did kind of tag him when they saw him the second time. And Atlanta was kind of on a roll offensively when the end of the season came around. Like, make no mistake, when they faced the Braves, they went toe-to-toe with them offensively. So I don't think you can really hold that against them. But Washington also tagged them pretty well. Not both times, but the second time around, they tagged them pretty well. It's going to take some adjustments for them. But I do really believe that if the slider really kind of takes a step forward, that we're talking about a guy that could be in the top 15 next year in the Glasnow range.
Brad says he prefers a safer SP in that range like Devi Garcia or Brady Singer. I like Singer, and I really like Devi Garcia too, but I don't think Devi Garcia has a job. I really love Devi Garcia, but I don't think he's a starter, at least to start the year. I think they're going to give Domingo Germán that 5th starter role, and Garcia goes down to the minors.
I have Sixto as most likely starting pitcher to get Tommy John 21. How can we project Tommy John? Like, how does that happen? Unless you have an actual report that says that a UCL tear has already happened, or somebody has a UCL strain, or
I don't know how Dinelson Lamet isn't the most likely guy to get Tommy John.
Yeah, I love Singer. If we're talking Singer, Debbie,
I do like Singer too. I like Singer a lot, but I like Sixto. I like Sixto quite a bit more.
Sixto's aside.
The fact that Singer is incorporating a 3rd pitch in right now is really, really good. Sounds really, really good to me. But let's move on and talk about other guys that we're a little bit farther apart on. Here's a guy that I'm higher on than you, Chris Paddock, man. Chris Paddock was a stud, really struggled last year, but I still believe that he can turn things around. Working on the spin rate and his fastball this offseason, really kind of embracing analytics after a struggling in 2020. You have him as starting pitcher 35. I still believe he's a top 30 guy. I've done it 26. Talk to me about Chris Paddock.
What I wrote down in the piece with the top 50 starting pitchers is I'm really worried about a third offering, and legitimately, like, his curveball was hit for a 308 batting average against with a 5.5% swing strike rate. It's not going to get it done. He has to find a way to get left-handed batters out. He gave up an 843 OPS to them last year in 2020. I love his command. I love two pitches that he has. He just needs a third to be able to keep lefties off balance. With that said, if he's able to establish a third pitch, what I also wrote is he could be a top 15 starter. And I've always been a massive fan of Paddock. I think that there is a lot more to his career than we've seen thus far. It could be this year, and maybe I'm playing it a little bit conservatively, mainly because they have so much other depth on the starting pitcher ranks for San Diego that they don't necessarily need him as much. But this could actually be the best opportunity for him to flourish, because he's going to go out there and be like the number 3 or 4 starter now, as opposed to the ace or the second guy. Which might help in win scenarios and everything. But from a skills perspective, I'm really not concerned. I think that he's going to offer great whip and ERA. I think that he's an above average strikeout guy. And I also think that he's somebody that can keep the ball in the yard a fair amount. I love his command. I think he's one of the best command pitchers in the game. I just need a third pitch, so that way we can get into the 25 to 27% strikeout range. And I can feel really good about him being a top 15 starter versus a guy that is going to, kind of hit the 20 to 23% mark and probably be more of a top 30, 35 guy, which is fine. But I do think that there's more there. I'm being conservative, and I think I could push him up, even 5-6 spots, just based on how he looks in spring and some things I noticed there. But ultimately, if you can't get lefties out, that's going to be a long-term problem. I think he'll be able to do it, but as of right now, especially based on last year, I'm just a shade worried about it.
Yeah, he's either got to push up that curveball usage, or he's got to find a third pitch. It's clearly that is the issue. And obviously, I mean, it's great to hear that he's working on spin rate and trying to add velocity onto that fastball. But to me, it's all about the third pitch. I trust San Diego. I like what they're doing a lot. And I think, for me, it's like, give me a guy with really good command first, and good stuff. I think eventually he's going to put it back together. We saw it in 2019. I'm not real worried that he's not going to at least be better than what we saw. That 2.14 homer per 9 rate is just unsustainably high. Like, for a guy with his command, there's no reason he should have a home run rate that high. I think that comes down, and that inherently just makes him a much better pitcher. Is it going to be what we saw in 2019? Maybe not, but I think it's going to be pretty damn close. Kept the walks at a really reasonable rate. Maybe he needs to stop being so aggressive and not being willing to put a guy on base here and there, because that defense behind him's very good. But I think he's going to be fine. I really like Chris Paddock this year.
So far in his career against lefties, 20 home runs and a 722 OPS against and 420 plate appearances. It's kind of an issue. It's not egregious, but it's kind of an issue. And maybe he could work on being a little bit more effectively wild in a sense. He does, get ahead more than probably 90% of the league. I mean, he has 66% first pitch strike rate in 2020, 71% in 26 starts in 2019. So maybe he could do a little bit better job of trying to get guys to chase or going out of the zone a little bit more and use that command to its full advantage rather than just having elite control. But I think we're in lockstep about the curveball usage, and hopefully he's able to generate more positive results with it. So,
all right, let's move on to a guy that I didn't even have ranked in my top 50. You did. That's Corey Kluber. You've got him at 41. That's telling me you think he's going to at least be somewhat healthy and effective, because that's talking about what your fourth pitcher in a 12-team, your third pitcher in a 15-team league. Why are you so high on Corey Kluber?
I just think that the skills, kind of similar to Max Scherzer, I think that this is a guy that the skills haven't really left him. He's just been having some tough bouts with injury, and I'm kind of willing to give a pass for that. And whether that is sound strategy on my part or not is something that could be debated. But I think from a skills perspective, that there's no denying that there still is the 2018 Kluber in there. Am I projecting that for this year, like a 2.89 ERA and a 0.99 WHIP? Absolutely not. But I do think that from a skills perspective, he is absolutely just as good as, or close to as good as 2018. And maybe he won't throw the innings, right? Because he hasn't really thrown more than, 30 something innings in the last 2 years. I think it's safe to say that 140, 150 innings is something that, we would obviously take as a win. But I just think that with injury bad luck, what I saw last year in spring training, and I posted a video of him in spring training on my top 50 article on the site. I loved what I saw. His command was vintage Kluber. His stuff was great. He is somebody that if you just didn't see him since 2018, you would assume really hasn't lost a beat at all. So I'm really kind of banking on what I saw prior to him getting injured once again in 2020 and hoping that kind of correlates into success for this year. Is 40 a little bit high? Probably a little bit. I probably could drop him down a few because I wouldn't feel great about him being my SP3 necessarily. But I do think that there is a lot of value here. I think based on what I saw last year and based on the reports I'm seeing that he's going to really help a lot of fantasy leagues this year as well, and the Yankees, to be honest. So I'm pretty high on him. I think that there's going to be a really solid value for him, again, barring innings.
Yeah, I mean, if you're taking him as your SP3, you're definitely high. I mean, so and I mean, I love Corey Kluber. Here's the thing: we saw warning signs kind of in some of the underlying metrics in 2017, 2018. That there were some red flags popping up. And then the injuries hit. So we never actually got to see whether those were things he was going to be able to turn around or whether those were, foreboding signs of a decline. Here's what I will say about Corey Kluber. One, he hasn't been healthy. Obviously, that adds to the risk. And two, one of the problems with guys with bad fastballs that rely on, elite command is their margin for error is so much smaller than guys who can throw hard or have really good fastballs. We know this. It's been proven out. And so I'm just very concerned that it's a really bad stadium. It's a really bad division. That margin for error is really, really small for him, and we just don't know the health. That being said, I've taken Corey Kluber in drafts because, like you said, the upside's amazing. How often do you get to take a pitcher who's going outside of the top 200 in drafts that could potentially return second, third round value if he is back to the guy he was in 2018. And I'm not projecting that he will. Yeah. I don't think you are either. No. But the upside's there because he's done it before and he is supposedly healthy right now.
Yeah, and the stadium would worry me. He's always been a guy that's been able to kind of maintain the home runs. His career home run per 9 is 0.9. He has never been somebody that has had issues with giving up the long ball. And I don't think that that's just stadium driven either. I think that he is just really calculated in how he handles his business. He wasn't a 2.89 guy in 2018 either. He was a 3.22 guy according to the expected ERA. Mm-hmm. I think I'm just really high on the skills still. And again, for better or for worse, I'm kind of throwing out the injuries the last couple of years. I wouldn't think it would be crazy if he were to go 160 innings this year, just because he might feel good enough to do that. Who knows?
He might have to in New York because they have a bunch of guys who are injury prone.
Right, including him the last couple of years. I mean, he has an F health grade now, which is, if you looked at it 3 years ago, he would have had an A because he went 200 innings for 5 straight years. So I'm not as concerned about Yankee Stadium. I'm more concerned about his shoulder. I'm more concerned about him being able to stay on the field than I am about the actual short porch and right and everything. I feel really good about him. Just based on what I saw last year. Now things could change. Maybe in spring I watch him this year and I'm not really loving what I'm seeing. But what I saw last year was vintage Kluber, and if things haven't really changed, I'm pretty happy with that.
All right, we're gonna wrap up our pitchers right there. We have gotten a few really great comments in the comment section, so set alerts for my Twitter or for my Facebook or the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Facebook account. So that way, when we do go live, you can ask us questions. We also have the Discord. The link will be in the show description. And I post, when we're going to be doing live shows and stuff like that. We're going to try to do these more regularly on Monday nights, usually about 10 p.m. Eastern. Like Mike said, he had some issues with his computer, so it's going to be a little bit shorter today. Brad asked a question that I think is really interesting that I just want to answer real quick, or have you answer real quick, Mike, and then I'll chime in as well. Where do you think the biggest profit on guys who had a bad 2020? Do you believe that it was COVID or small sample thinking guys like Suarez or Seamark?
I think Gleyber Torres is somebody that kind of fits the bill of probably would have rounded into form had 2020 been a full season. I've been somebody that's been pretty down on Torres for the most part. But I do think based on a lot of things that he would have ended up kind of rounding back into form if we had a full year. That's the first guy off the top of my head. I don't know if you have a few as well, but
Yeah, I mean, the guys he mentioned are guys that I've been targeting.
Right.
Eugenio Suarez.
Meadows as well.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I was
Meadows
just about
is
to
like a
say
massive one.
Meadows. Like everybody's giving Yon Moncada a pass for getting COVID, but guys like Meadows like are not getting a pass for some reaon. Like
Randy
Meadows
Rosarina had COVID too.
Yeah, well, maybe that made him better because I
Somehow.
believe in Randy Rosarina. I took him in the fourth round of the tag team NFBC $500 buy-in league last night with Shelly V, and I just traded for him in a dynasty league. I traded away Alex Kirilov and Lourdes Gurriel for Randy Rosarina. So I believe in a Rosarina. But here's the thing, like Cardinals, I'm getting lots of the Cardinals passes. Guys like Tommy Edman, Tommy Edman played in virtually every game for the Cardinals, and they played 11 doubleheaders. I mean, they really believe in him. He could be leading off for that team. And people are kind of like down on him for some reason. He's quadruple eligible in most leagues. Love a guy like Tommy Edman. The guys who got COVID and are now healthy. Yeah, I'm kind of buying in on them because, a lot of these guys really, really struggled with the after effects. So, for me, it's all about skills, and I'm not going to completely write someone off after 60 games or 50 games, depending on how many they played in 2020. So I'm definitely looking to profit off of the small sample size of 2020 going into 2021. All right. Oh, Bruce, our boy Bruce, Friends Fantasy Benefits. Projections dig Suarez that Bad X has him at 42 homers, 101, 108, 254. Give that to me all day. Absolutely love Eugenio Suarez this year.
Yeah, I think we've talked about Suarez already, but yeah, Suarez is an absolute monster buy. He probably should be going 2 rounds ahead of where he's going.
Yeah. All right. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. Sorry, it's a little bit quicker one. Next time will be a little bit longer, but unfortunately, I've got another podcast to go run and do with my wife and Sammy Reed over at the TGFBI feed. So definitely subscribe to that, especially if you're a newer fantasy player. We're doing a really cool series with my wife, learning how to play fantasy baseball leading up to TGFBI. You can follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason, FWFB. You can follow Mike Mike on Twitter at Mike Werner, FWFB. Mike, what do you got going on right now?
Yeah, I'm doing the Facts Flukes column at Baseball HQ, which is like the premier skill set article for them, which I'm pretty excited about. I've done a couple of them already. I've talked about guys like Gary Sanchez, Carlos Correa. It's kind of in the title, Facts or Flukes, of what you can expect for now and forward. But I'm really excited about that. I'm doing the show with you and possibly other things throughout the year. So yeah, just excited to get a full baseball season, which would be amazing.
I'm a Baseball HQ subscriber for the first time.
Are you really?
I did. I subscribed to Baseball HQ this year.
Congrats.
I love all the guys over there, man. They do really great work, and I felt like, if I'm going to give my money to somebody, I should give it to them. Plus, they got Rotolab, which is, one of the big reasons I did. But, I love guys like Brent Hershey and Ryan Bloomfield and you. Definitely support me.
Forecaster, by the way, this year really upped the ante. Like they did a lot of expected stats, and they also really incorporated a lot of the exit velocity, launch angle, revolution with it. Eric Floramonte is one of the best research guys in the business, and he developed a whole letter grade system on how to evaluate just year in, year out, how to evaluate guys from an exit velocity, barrel, launch angle standpoint. But they just created a whole new myriad of expected stats that are out there that you can only see in the forecaster right now. So you definitely need to shout out that, but I know you got to wrap up.
Yep. You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Email me the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. If you'd like a Friends of Fantasy Benefits draft guide, an award-nominated draft guide, you can still get that. Email me, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com. It's $7 for the PDF, or you can head on over to Amazon. The link will be in the show description. But that's how you get the paperback or the ebook. Podapalooza coming up this week. If you want to get raffle tickets for that, for every dollar you donate, you get a raffle ticket. Great prizes. It's going to be a lot of fun. Over 100 fantasy analysts are going to join me over the weekend. I'll be live streaming on my YouTube, my Twitch, pretty much anywhere where you could potentially watching this now. My Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. A lot of great prizes, and everything that gets donated will be donated to Mental Health America, a fantastic organization supporting mental health in this country. So And then you can hear me on Sleeper in the Bust. You can hear me on the TGFBI podcast. And I'm writing daily over at Fangraphs this year. So definitely go over and read all my columns over there. For Mike and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.